Baselines dropped on a Friday, Freestyle Friday edition of Soccer Down Here. It's January 22nd. There are a number of things to discuss today. If you'd like to add to that list of things to discuss, you can do that on Twitter. You can tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. You can join us on the Twitch pitch, twitch.tv/SoccerDownHere. You can email us, soccerdownhere@gmail.com. You could probably send a carrier pigeon to John as well. He would probably be able to get that one.
Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah, probably. Probably end up in the spam filter anyway. So we've got a lot of things to talk about on a lot of different fronts. MLS SuperDraft, we'll recap all of it. If you didn't see the post-draft review show with myself and Kevin Egan, it's up on Atlanta United's Facebook and on the YouTube. Man, we put a lot into that, and it was a long day. But we were able to pull a ton of different things together. The crew over at Mercedes-Benz Stadium putting this together with us. We had, 6 interviews in 5 different places that we were able to connect up remotely and get it done. It was pretty wild. It was a fun experience. It was the first draft I had covered like that, and there were a lot of twists and turns in it. So we'll talk about that. Liverpool still can't score goals, and we have no idea why at this point. Jurgen Klopp seems to have no ideas either. It's just, Zinedine Zidane has tested positive for COVID-19, so he will be missing at least a game this weekend, probably a couple more. The way things are going for Real Madrid, I don't know if he is too broken up about that. Getting a little bit of a break might be a good thing. There is a new name that has been attached to the potential opening at Real Madrid, which is not open yet. But this says a rumor that is circulating on both sides of the Atlantic, so we'll get into that too. Copa Sudamericana final is tomorrow as well. Defensa y Justicia and Lanús play at 3 o'clock. We'll talk about that. But let's start with the Super Draft, John. What'd you think?
When the number 5 projected pick pulls worse than an Aaron Rodgers and drops all the way to 31, and you have the opportunity to grab Josh Bauer, and Bauer was one of the names that as I'm sitting there looking in that first round and things keep going and going and going, and you're not seeing Josh Bauer's name, and you're not seeing Kiz's name out of Pitt, and those guys are still out there. And then you get into the second round, and Josh Bauer's still there, and you jump on that. And then you drop, if you're Atlanta United, then you get Aiden McFadden out of Notre Dame also. You add Machop Chol to the mix. I think Atlanta United gets high marks across the board, especially when you have players fall into your lap like they did out of New Hampshire.
So we'll look back at the mock drafts really quickly. Josh Bauer was picked to go 4th by Travis Clark at MLSsoccer.com to DC in his final mock draft. Ivis Galarcep, his final mock draft, had Bauer going to Atlanta United at 5. Mm-hmm. The final Top Drawer Soccer mock draft had Bauer going 4 to DC. He went 31. Mm-hmm. That was baffling to me. And let me try to recap how things went on our end. So, first pick, Kevin and I, we had talked about it yesterday. We were both consistently on the same page before we even started talking about the draft in any detail. Daniel Pereira was a player that we both really, really liked. I didn't expect him to go number 1. Nobody did. I love the pick for Austin. Was really excited to see that. He has a ton of upside. That was great. That started everything on a what is going to happen today. See, Gwen was fired up about Daniel Pereira too. So we didn't know where things were going to go from there because that started to change everything. Look, we talked about it the whole time, and it wasn't inside information. When you pick 5th, with the way this draft was kind of shaping up coming in, you had a lot of possibilities because Atlanta United has a good roster. They didn't need a ton of help. They weren't just picking the best available at that pick. They had some specific things they were looking for, and if they weren't there, they'd trade out. Okay. So after that first pick, we were kind of expecting, okay, we're going to hear about a trade. We're going to know about a trade coming pretty early, maybe even before the draft starts. We didn't. That first pick kind of threw everything up like, whoa, what could happen here? Let's see what goes on. If Mayaka falls to 5, maybe you hold on to that pick and take it there. Didn't happen. He went third. But still things got weird in the draft. So they waited a little bit, announced the deal with DC. So DC went back to back. They traded up to get the 5 after the 4, and then their picks blew everybody's mind.
Yep.
To the point that Houston tweeted at them with a, what you doing? I mean, I did not see... The first 3 were the first 3. They were in a different order, but the first 3 players were the first 3 players. No shocks there. Kamarni Smith, I had in the 9, 10, 11 range.
Right.
Michael DeShields, I thought might have been available for Atlanta in the second round. He was on my second round, like, okay, if he's available, I like him. Blown away by those 2 picks. Absolutely blown away. I like both of the players, but at 4 and 5, it felt like a reach.
Yeah.
So then it all got weird. Bartlow going 6, Generation Adidas, no shock. Halsey going 7, Generation Adidas, no shock. Dodson was higher than he was projected to go. Egbo was about where people thought he would go, to Vancouver. Josh Penn was higher than he was expected to go, number 10 to Miami. He was later in the first round, according to most. Freddie Kleeman was middle second round for a lot of people. He went 11. He jumped Josh Bauer, which was a shock to me. Thomas Williamson, local guy for San Jose, but he was not looked at 12. Archimedes was not looked at 13. He was looked at later. Danny Trejo, about where you would expect him to go. And LAFC's tweet about Danny Trejo was awesome. I mean, you had to do it, right? You had to actually get the actor Danny Trejo involved in this. It was great. I like Trejo a lot. I think that's a great pick for LAFC. He's a player that I think could be a big surprise. Nicky Hernandez at 15, a little bit higher than people thought, but it makes sense because they have him on North Texas. He's not a Dallas Academy product, so he's not a homegrown eligible guy, but he came into North Texas and played really well last year. So they grabbed his MLS rights to secure everything. Smart pickup. Drac to LA Galaxy at 16, a little bit higher than people thought. Not crazy. McMaster a little bit higher than people thought to Minnesota. Kibanguchi fell to 18. He was a player that I'd talked about a lot. I like him. I do not see him as a holding midfielder. I don't know where that conversation was coming from. He's like 6'3" or so. I think he's a center back at the next level, but he's good on the ball. Rio Hope Gund was another one that jumped above Bauer that was a little surprised by. Bigger program, 2019 College Cup champions, Georgetown. Maybe that was it. Not sure. Kevin really likes Koze, who went to Nashville, Donaciano. Really liked him. That's about where he was projected to go. Kevin thought that was a really good value for money. Kevin called a lot of ACC games for Fox Sports South, so he had a chance to see some of these guys a little bit more than a lot of people. Aiden Stanley, 21. Brandon Hackenberg was another one that jumped ahead of Bauer. That was a surprise. Again, bigger program, but still. 23 is where things started to get weird. Okay, so Javane Brown goes to South Florida. He's a player that Atlanta United 2, we believe, had signed for the upcoming season. Well, now he's going to go to Vancouver. I mean, you're going to go to the MLS team. If he doesn't get a deal in Vancouver, which he might not, I would expect that he would go in here. I think he's a good enough player to get signed by the Vancouver Whitecaps. Then he won't come to Atlanta United 2. That's just the way it goes. It's basically like signing a backup plan when you sign the USL deal ahead of time. Okay, but that's where it started to get weird. It's like, oh man, okay, that's a guy who could have helped the twos, maybe could have grown into something here. All right. Now, around this time, we were looking at it. Kevin and I are at the stadium. We're watching the draft play out. Every pick of a team that has any need for a defender, I'm like, okay, it's got to be Bauer, right? It's got to be Bauer here. And it's not Bauer. And I started saying around this time, I'm like, I'd trade back in and get him. Like, I would trade back into the bottom of the first round and grab Bauer if he's still there. That was where my head was at about 22, 23. Kept watching it. New England was the one that I thought Bauer was going to. No question about it. He's a local guy, New Hampshire guy. I'm like, he's going at 24. New England fans wanted them to take Bauer at that pick. They went with Kiza, who is a player who scored over 30 goals in over 50 games, but left the program. Kind of a weird thing this year. I don't know what happened with that. Nobody really knows. But he's a powerful forward. Okay. Then you start looking. They went to Mabika with Miami at 26. Maluda from Clemson went at 27. And it's like, man, he's still here. And we started to get some word that, our thoughts were correct. Like, if Bauer was still going to be available in the second round, that's where they were going to go. And it's just like, all right, well, is he going to stick around, or are they going to be able to get him? Do they need to trade up to get him? Because if you have to trade up a couple spots, that's not much. You already got some allocation money in the bank from the deal at 5. So if he's your guy, then trade up. Go grab him. You didn't have to. You didn't have to do it. It's amazing that you get Bauer, who was projected 4, 4, and 5 by the 3 leading mock drafts. You get him at 31. I don't know why. Because this is a guy that is the most pro-ready of the center backs, in my opinion. He's the most ready to walk in and play. That also means that he is a little bit more of what he is. He's a little bit older. He's 24. He's a veteran. He spent some time at the pro level with Birmingham last year and in USL. Didn't play a lot, but he was there in a professional environment in the fall. He's a player who has been to Atlanta when Atlanta has done a couple college combines to invite guys in to get a look at them. He's somebody who's been here. He's somebody that the staff has seen. That helps a lot. He's somebody who is familiar with the club, comfortable with the club. They're comfortable with him. They know what they're getting with him. And that's the biggest thing. And we talked about it coming into the draft. When we talked about Bauer potentially at 5, you've got the 2 young center backs, Campbell and Morales, on homegrown deals. Morales has played about 10 professional games at the USL level. Campbell didn't really play this past season. They're 2 very young center backs who are great ones for the future, not the present, at the first team level. And then you've got your first team center backs. You're not going to see Escobar, Meza, Robinson, Walks playing for the 2s. You needed somebody in between. Now, Carlos Bocanegra mentioned it, Darren Neal's mentioned it with us as well, about Bryce Washington. Now, Bryce Washington, according to reports, Ivis Galarcep has had this, he's going to play in the spring. He was not draft eligible. He is homegrown eligible for Atlanta United. He's going to play the spring season in college. They have until, I think, sometime in May. I don't know what the exact date is when you have to make that signing. Again, it's a weird situation because normally your season would be in the fall. They had to push it because of COVID. He's opting in to play there. They can sign him to a homegrown when his college season is done. That's another center back in that 22, 23, 24 range who can come in and contribute. You needed somebody like that, and maybe you get 2 if you sign Washington as well. But in this way, and we saw this with Anderson Asayadu. Now, it didn't work out for Anderson. Anderson came in and didn't show that he could compete for first-team minutes, didn't project to being an MLS player. They didn't keep him around. They let him go somewhere where he would play more. He wasn't going to get – it wasn't good for him to stick around and get bumped for Will Riley to get minutes or for Mo Adams to come down and get minutes. That didn't make sense for Asayadu either. Bauer's going to get the first half of the season to come in and show what he can do. I think he'll play a good bit for Atlanta United, too, in those early games to see what you have. I think he'll train a whole lot with the first team to see what you have. He's a good player on the ball. And what jumped out to me watching the film on him, and this is why I'm blown away that he dropped this far, he's comfortable winning the ball as a center back and stepping forward and carrying it forward. That's one of the number one things that Gabriel Heinze looks for out of center backs. So he fits the bill. Now he's got the opportunity. Now he's got to perform. Now he's got to make the most of it. The funny thing is around this time, too, as we were starting to talk and try to figure out, what else we're going to do, what else we're going to have in the draft, McFadden's name came up as somebody that you'd like to get. And this was early on. It's like, okay, McFadden's a guy they know. They know through the Notre Dame connection with Gallagher. He assisted on some of Gallagher's goals in Gallagher's senior season as a freshman. All right, he's another one you got targeted. If you can get him, great. That's who you would like because you think he is a fit. He fits the profile. And he was available in the third round. So, great fit. Great fit. And we shall see where this goes. Love to hear your questions on it. Love to hear your comments on it. Let us know. Tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. Join in on the Twitch pitch. What else about the draft yesterday stood out to you?
Well, I have a theory, and let me present it, and let me see if you think that there's any validity to it. In looking at why players dropped for whatever reason, I think what we saw was teams drafting and looking at a lot of the college programs and conferences that played. So you had that recent information in front of you as opposed to just looking at old tape. And I think that maybe that was a reason that you saw about the first 5 and I think 7 of the first 13 were ACC players. The ACC is a good conference, but at the same time you had more recent information about ACC players and programs and things like that where you could sit there and you had something tangible in front of you as opposed to old tape. And I also think that in other instances, like in San Jose's instance, where they pick a player from California university systems, I think that once again, because you can't get out and scout as much as you would like, you're sticking to your regional knowledge base. And I think that that might have been another reason why players in the larger conferences were picked before a Josh Bauer, although I have no earthly idea why he dropped to 31. I'm just thinking that you have the regionalization and the inability to go out and scout might have led to folks drafting players that were closer to them and stuff that you could physically see. And that was just something that popped out to me as I was looking through everything.
Yeah, to a degree. I think a lot of people use the draft for potential, use the draft for picking up either somebody that they already know, somebody local, like you said, or somebody that they feel like can improve in the pro environment. And that makes sense for a lot of teams. It makes sense in a lot of situations. But where you got Bauer and what Atlanta needed makes sense. Now, yeah. I think the thing to understand here is both of these guys have been drafted. They are not under contract yet. That's not how this works. It's not how the NFL works either, but I think people get it twisted because generally you see everybody get signed. You don't see that in MLS. Second, third round picks don't always get contracts, don't always even start the season with the team who drafted them. They get an opportunity. Atlanta gets first crack at these two players. Now, we could see what happened with Patrick Nielsen last year, where he signed a twos deal, but he came into camp with the first team. Both of them will come into camp with the first team. They'll get an opportunity. They might sign with Atlanta United too. They might sign with Atlanta United and get loaned to Atlanta United too. They might sign with Atlanta United and stick with the first team. All those things are possible, but they're not under contract right now. That needs to be understood. It is an opportunity. And I think you heard it from both of the guys when we had a chance to interview them last night. They're both pretty pumped about that opportunity, and they know what it means, and they know what they have to do to get there. I mean, Bauer's got a lot of competition at center back, both older and younger. McFadden's got a lot of competition all over the midfield. But out wide, where I think he shines, and he can play a lot, as Kevin was explaining, as an inverted winger, a right-footed player on the left. He's very comfortable using his cutback, getting back to his right foot there, cutting inside. Inverted wingers are something that positional play advocates like Gabriel Heinze really like because it gives you another weapon. So with a left back like a George Bello who likes to bomb down the left wing and overlap and stay wide, McFadden coming inside creates the space, and it works really well. So you've got a lot of possibilities with these two, but now they have to earn it, and that's how the game goes. That's how it works out. What are the people saying on the Twitters?
Okay, we got a couple. Dan Graham is in, and he says, I like the Bauer pick not only for the value, but he gives Campbell and Morales a target to shoot for. Mm-hmm. I like McFadden's energy. We'll see if he pans out.
Yeah, I mean, both are fits that push the kids behind them to reach that level, and both are guys who will put in the work to push the guys ahead of them. And you need that. I mean, it's an underrated part of building a team. You're going to have some guys in a squad that probably aren't going to play very much, but they're great players to have every day in training because they raise the level. And that's what you're looking for out of these guys. They have to take every opportunity they can, but they have to just bust their asses to make it harder to keep them out of the team.
Nathan Pugh is in this morning on a couple of topics, but on this particular topic, he wants to know, how do you think we spend the Garber bucks?
Oh, no idea. I mean, it expands the cap a little bit. It's roughly, I think it's a little bit less than a usual international slot. So if you needed that, you've got a little bit room to work with. It's a bonus. I mean, it's just a bonus of six figures. I was interested when the trade started popping off, the differences in some of the numbers. I think Colorado overpaid to get to 3. That was the one where that happened, and in the Atlanta trade was announced, and it's like, man, that's 125 and 200, and they're swapping picks. Like, did Atlanta not get enough? But then the later trades kind of felt like they were in line with where the Atlanta price was with DC. Colorado overpaid, but they ended up getting Mayaka, who most people thought would be number 1, so... Right. You can't complain too much if they had the allocation money to spend. And look, Colorado, we've talked about their strategy. They're not going out and signing a whole bunch of international players, pushing the salary cap a lot. They're signing guys that haven't worked out in MLS, and they're bringing them into Colorado. So if they've got extra allocation money to work with and they want to move up to get Pereira, which is, I'm sure is what they were thinking, okay, you get Mayaka instead, okay, you can pull that off. But I think they overpaid a little bit to get there.
I thought that what DC did in trading up, I thought that their selections were reaches, and you got into that as well.
Ooh, it felt like it. Did other people tweet during the draft yesterday? I'm pretty sure they did. And I know that Tafka's tweeted about the draft as well.
Yeah, Tafka's in here, and Tafka says, losing 2 of our pre-USL deal players may work out well for Bauer. He can practically be a full-time starter for Atlanta United 2 right now.
Brown, yeah, because Brown could have factored in as a center back. Steedman, who got picked up, it doesn't affect as much there because he's a midfielder. I was a little surprised by that. I mean, we didn't see a ton of Daniel Steedman in Atlanta United 2 last season. I was a little surprised he went where he did. That's it's how it goes. It's the way you're trying to build out a full depth chart with a first team, with a second team, with academy, and making sure you've got the players to fill both teams and both spots. And yeah, some guys that you think either might get drafted later, because we've seen this happen where guys get drafted in the second or third round. I think Alan Wynn was one for Nashville, who had signed a USL deal with Nashville the year before they came into MLS, got drafted second round, I believe, by Colorado, and he said, no, I'm not going to go to Colorado. I'm happy with going to Nashville. And he ended up going into MLS with Nashville. So, first round for Brown, I think he goes to Vancouver. At a minimum, goes into camp with them to try to earn a deal. I would assume Steedman would go and try to earn a deal. If they don't get it, then they've got USL deals to fall back on in Atlanta.
Couple of other thoughts. Tafka followed up by saying it should be noted it wasn't just Bauer who dropped. MLS's top 10 had 5 players still on the board after 20.
Yeah, I mean, these are so hard to do, and that's why we don't go on and on and on about the super draft for weeks and weeks, because it's a lot of guessing. I do have some questions about the talent evaluation side of it, and whether it's on the MLS side or on the people are doing the mock drafts, the expert side. This happens a lot where it's way off. This one felt more off than usual. It is a crazy college season, and I'm going to chalk it up to that. But it shows you how hard it is to project talent in general. The draft is another way to potentially find a player. It's not the best way. It's not the only way. It's the most low-risk way because you're grabbing a guy outside of a Generation Adidas player or the few seniors who signed deals with MLS ahead of the draft. You're grabbing a guy's rights, and you're getting an opportunity to see him. So it's a low-risk way, but some teams don't put a lot into it because of that. Some teams do, and some teams get a lot out of the draft. There's not a right or wrong answer with it. I think the draft can be useful if you do it correctly, but it is more of a crapshoot.
And the last thought on the draft so far on the timeline comes from Kevin from Charlotte. He says, can we please drop super out of the super draft? Seems so 90s. Surprised it's not called power draft.
They did it because I think when they changed the name to that, it wasn't strictly a college draft. You had some young international players that would get signed and put into the draft. I think even at that time, you could draft players of certain ages who were in the second division in the A-League and stuff. So instead of just calling it the college draft, they called it the super draft, and it's just stuck, and it is very 90s. It's very silly. But, whatever.
Yeah. So that catches us up on the Twitters about the draft.
Okay. Well, there's another thing, and Walchar is yelling about it, and we will get into it. Cesar Luis Merlo reported yesterday. Made you go to the Instagram. Cesar, he knows what he's doing working the social media. I'm impressed. You go to the Instagram and you see the report about Franco Ibarra from Argentinos Juniors. And his name had come up before with some very low-level sourcing. 500-600 followers, 900 followers from one account. You have to question those. We've talked about it. Cesar Luis Merlo goes with it. Okay, there's a little more heft to this. So Merlo's reporting that he would be coming to Atlanta. Very young player, 19, very young in experience. He played 10 games in the Copa Diego Armando Maradona for Argentinos. And up and down, which you would expect. He's a 19-year-old. He'd played one game in the Superliga before that, the previous season. So when you jump into the talk on him, not a lot of people know a lot about him, first off. So understand that. And I don't. And I'm not going to tell you that I do. I'm not going to tell you, oh, he is just like this player, or he can't do that. Or no, I'm not going to tell you that because I did not watch every Argentinos Juniors game. I'll tell you what I know about him. He played 10 games, started 10, played most of every game. Performances, rating-wise, up and down. He had a couple man-of-the-match performances for Argentinos. He had a couple poor performances. Red-carded in his last match against Boca Juniors on January 9th. Picked up some yellows, picked up a second yellow that saw a red against San Lorenzo back on Halloween. Very active player defensively. Now, Argentinos generally played in a 4-2-3-1. He played in a double pivot. Two holding midfielders. He wasn't asked strictly to stay back. Double pivots usually give you the freedom. One can go, one sits. But he's more of a defensive midfielder when you look at his output. And something that I look for a lot is defensive actions, interceptions, tackles, blocks, clearances, stuff like that. 4 tackles per game in his 10 games in the Copa Maradona, which is a lot. Over 2 interceptions per game, which is a lot. Good on the long pass, and his good games, you'd be seeing games where he'd be like 10 to 15 on long passes over 25 yards. That's pretty good. That's pretty good for a holding midfielder. It shows some range in his passing. I'm going to dig deeper into his game. I'm going to go back on Fanatis and watch some of the Argentinos games from the Copa Maradona and study a little bit more. I like what I've seen in very limited information. I like what I've seen in some statistics that are out there on him. He's very young, and he's got about 11 professional games under his belt. But he was a player that did turn a few heads in the Copa Maradona. Gonzalo... I can't even talk anymore. Golazo Argentino talked about him as one of the best young players in the league. Go ahead, John.
Mercado de Pases came up about an hour ago, and They say that the formal offer has not been lowered yet, and this is translated. Numbers have already been discussed. It would be US $3 million for 80% plus a percentage of a future sale.
Feels about right for a emerging player. Those numbers feel about right. We talked about what direction you could go here with a veteran player coming in to that kind of role or a young player that you can mold. Now, you do remember that Gabriel Heinze spent time at Argentinos when they were in the second division. That was back in 2016-17. So you do the math and you work backwards, and Franco Ibarra is an April 2001 birthday. So he would have been 16 at the end of Heinze's time at Argentinos, 15 at the beginning of that season. I don't know where he was in the club at that point. You know, Argentine clubs aren't really structured like us in terms of you have a U15, a U17, a U19. Their academy has levels, and there are ages to it, but guys move, further up levels just as their ability shows. Could he have been somebody that was starting to get noticed a little bit? Sure, he could have. He didn't make his full debut until a couple years after Heinze left. But could Heinze have known of him coming through the academy at that time? Yes, he could have. Could have, and we just don't know. So stay tuned. We'll keep you posted on that. You're starting to get a lot of action on the Argentine transfer market, a lot of mercado de pases, because they're out of season now. They've still got a few games going on with playoffs and such, with promotion playoffs, all that kind of stuff. But they're out of season as they get ready for the next, cup tournament starting in mid-February. And everybody is making moves, not a lot of big moves. River, there's still some questions. Enzo Perez is linked to potentially an MLS team, and I don't know who it would be, and a Turkish team, but he could stay at River Plate. Now, he's a veteran holding midfielder. Rafael Santos Borre is linked with River trying to keep him, but his name has come up with MLS as well. Borre is in an interesting one because Atletico Madrid owns part of his pass. And according to what I've read, River wants to renew his contract. It ends in June. If they did that, they'd have to buy another 25% of his pass from Atleti, I guess, according to the deal that they have. That'd be about $3.5 million. I don't know if they can pull that off. There could be some other players available from Argentina coming kind of quickly as teams try to navigate COVID, try to navigate financial issues, and try to prepare for the upcoming season. Almendra has been linked with moves inside of Argentina. Haven't seen anything about him being linked to clubs on the outside right now. San Lorenzo has come up with a potential landing spot for Almendra on loan to get him back playing consistently, and then maybe you're looking at a sale. So that's out there too. It's going to be hectic on that front. And it's going to be hectic on the MLS front because, look, we don't know what the timeline's looking like. And I think Shiva had asked about that earlier in the Twitch pitch. We don't know. The plan on paper was always January 25th. I think I saw somebody say January 27th for their team. Peter Vermes has consistently said early April, February 1, or early April for a start time. Training camp, February 1 or February 8. Haven't seen any updates on anything like that officially yet. And a lot of it has to do with this CBA issue that both sides are now firing off their tweets, firing off their letters, playing it out in public, not getting anywhere. The Players Association has not responded to the proposal that was sent by the league. Basically, I guess, a lot of people think they're just going to call their bluff and not respond and see what the league does. The league, we think, and this is a lot of theory because this has never been tested, a lot of legal theory, would the situation that they could be facing in 2021 qualify as a valid reason for a force majeure clause to be invoked? We've never seen it happen, so, if you want to fight that, sure. fighting it out that way accomplishes absolutely zero. And I just don't want to see these sides do it. But I'm afraid that's where we're headed, is a legal fight on the definitions in the clause and in the contract rather than a realistic conversation about what's going on. I really hope they figure it out, but I don't like the way it's playing out publicly. I don't like the way it's looking right now at all.
When you have one side, when you have one side put out a statement on draft day and it's discussing the day, and then at the bottom you discuss the labor situation, then you have the other side basically try to come out with a cute and pithy tweet.
I don't like that at all.
That was, it's like, look, focus on the task at hand. Don't try to do this and try to figure out, public opinion and try to be cute about it. This is not a time to be cute about anything when it comes to a labor situation. Considering what's at stake for the league, the players, the franchises, the fans, every aspect from both sides, there's a lot in play here. And to do something like that, to try to garner some kind of positivity and public opinion to sway one side or the other, look, as you said yesterday and as we've maintained, get your Zoom meeting figured out. However many people have to be in those little boxes, get it figured out, sort it out, get it done, because there's more than just games that are at stake here. And when you're playing games through social media, you're not solving anything. You're not progressing any closer to any kind of an agreement, because just because you say something that's got 13 characters or whatever on your social media platform, there are a lot of other people who are affected by this. So don't sort it out publicly. Get your Zoom meeting figured out. Get it squared away so we can all have seasons.
What social media platform are you using that you only get 13 characters, John?
Oh, no, just was it at us next time?
Yeah.
So that's at us is 3 next time. Sorry, 11, and with spaces maybe 14.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know the best way to handle it. I do think that the players will win the court of public opinion. There's no way around that. But I also do think it's 100% valid that the league has lost a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And I don't think you can argue that. So talking about what you can do would make a lot of sense. But what we know about the situation, you can get into the particulars, and there's a lot that we don't know because we don't know the books. We don't know what's going on there. We don't know what the CBA even looks like because it hasn't ever been published. But what we know that has been reported is that once you invoke the force majeure clause, which the league did, there was a 30-day negotiation period where both sides were supposed to negotiate in good faith about potential changes to the CBA in light of whatever issue was cited when the clause was invoked. One side has put a proposal on the table, the other hasn't responded to it. We know that. Beyond that, that's all we know. And if, I don't know. That's all we know. There's really not a whole lot else to say. The league wants to get some help in the short term, or actually the league wants to guarantee the players getting their full pay in the short term. The trade-off would be the league gets savings over the life of the CBA, and especially on the back end. The players' argument, which is valid, the back end of the CBA, the league should be in better position. They're going to get more out of it by waiting than the players are getting now by getting their full pay. And I understand that. That's why a counter proposal would be great here, to have this back and forth, because the argument for me that you're not being affected right now doesn't hold water. The owners, the teams are being affected. There's just no way to argue they're not. So if you want to create a different proposal, or say 2 years on the CBA is too much, 1 year, or only these aspects of the CBA will give you for 1 year or 2 years, whatever, come back with a counter proposal. The players made it clear to the league, and this is again from reporting, and this is from what the league said too, so it's not even just reporting. The players did not want to take pay cuts, period. They only took a 5% pay cut ultimately. They did have bonuses cut. That's a little bit different conversation. There's not been any reporting on how much of a percentage for players of bonuses they didn't get per player, per situation, and it were these bonuses that were tied to the number of games that would be played. Well, you didn't play as many games. Or were they bonuses that the players gave up getting for things to help give back? We don't know what that totaled out to be. We've seen speculation on it, but we don't know what that totaled out to be. The proposal right now would be no pay cut. You'd get 100% of your pay. I would assume bonuses as well. That has not been talked about either way. I don't know if there's a league in the world outside of the NFL which is playing a normal amount of games. I don't know if there's a league in the world that players are getting 100% of their pay. Most have talked about pay cuts, mostly at the club level. I'm sure there's one somewhere. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's somebody. But, when you read about the situations of Real Madrid trying to get 10% cuts because of what they're facing, when you read about situations that are coming out in the Spanish press today about Barcelona asking their creditors for more time because they're trying not to go bankrupt. Like, these things are real. There's just no way to fight them. And then when you hear just in general about people losing jobs and all these situations that we're all seeing across the country right now, this argument looks bad on both sides. Both sides. That needs to be understood. Mm-hmm. Sit down and talk through it so you can figure it out and move on so everybody knows what's coming up next. Because you don't want to sacrifice the long-term growth over 25 years. You don't want to sacrifice the long-term growth coming up, the potential growth, for short-term issues. We do think by the end of this season you will have full capacity at stadiums. I think that's a safe assumption. Will everybody buy a ticket? You can't control that part. Will you be able to open all the stadiums? Yes, by the end of the season. I think so. Chara, I thoroughly disagree that a lockout would be good for the league. Now, understand, too, the differences in terminology, because they get thrown around interchangeably. The owners would lock the players out, and that has not been talked about. The players would strike. That has not been talked about. Neither side has went there yet. If the owners took the next step of breaking the CBA, which could be possible according to the force majeure clause, or could be fought in court over was the force majeure clause legally enacted, whatever. There's a bunch of different things that could happen out of that. Then that would be a situation where I believe the players could strike. Correct?
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a situation here where the owners would lock the players out. I don't think it would go that way. Look, I don't know. Again, and there's a lot of things that are mixed up into this. As Domer points out, a lot of European clubs like Barcelona, they've paid crazy amounts for players. They haven't run themselves well. Absolutely true. But nobody also saw a pandemic coming that was going to immediately threaten the existence of clubs and leagues. We're in something that you could not prepare for, and people need to be a little more realistic about working through it, including governments. But they've got to work through this. The sniping back and forth is not going to fix it. So stop with the letters, stop with the tweets, sit down and talk, get in a Zoom, talk, figure it out, respond to the proposal, or say you're not going to respond to the proposal. Like, let's get clear about stuff. Don't drag these things out. Because you've got a lot of people that are waiting to see what's going to happen next. And look, we don't know. I couldn't tell you. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But I hope that people stop trying to score points on social media and score points through public letters, because I just don't think that's going to fix it. You've got to get some people who can sit down and talk. And both sides have to be willing to talk. Because it's a real issue. It's a real issue. And nobody has the answer, by the way. That's the thing that I think it drives me the craziest about all this. Nobody knows what date you will be allowed in every stadium in the league to open at full capacity. Nobody knows that. The league doesn't, the players don't, the doctors don't, the governors and mayors don't. Nobody knows that right now. So that's real. It's not going to be game one. We know that much. Beyond that, we don't know if it's Game 5, if it's Game 10, if it's Game 25, if it's not till 2022. We don't know. So when we don't know, people have to be willing to have the conversation about how you work together. Because there's not some answer out there that somebody has and the others don't. Nobody knows this right now. Nobody knows how the vaccine rollout's going to improve. Nobody knows how many people are going to opt to get it. Nobody knows when governments, health authorities will feel like it is okay in every stadium in the league to open at full capacity. And then you also don't know, but this is a different conversation, about the willingness of fans to go. That part we don't know. Will people be wary? Yeah, I think some people will. Absolutely. But that part is a different, unpredictable element. Right now, you can't do it. You can't even find out the answer to that. Is what it is, man. It's frustrating. But we'll see. They're not going to do it through letters and tweets, though. And I'm frustrated that this is turning into a high school election debate on social media rather than two smart groups of people who understand what's going on probably a lot better than all of us do and are acting in a way that is just trying to score points. It doesn't help. It doesn't help. So maybe one day they'll get through it. Maybe one day they'll sit down and talk, and we'll find out when the league's going to start. I don't think anybody wins from a lockout, from a strike, from nothing. Nobody wins any of that. Nobody benefits. So do what you got to do to avoid it. I don't think the league hits that option. It would be pointless to. I would like to see the players at least engage with the league on this and figure out if there's anything that can be done realistically for both sides to be more comfortable during a time that's a mess everywhere, but especially for pro sports right now. So Figure it out, and we'll see what happens. What else is on the Twitters?
Let's see. We have some other stuff from Nathan this morning, and it has to do with the Premier League on a couple of separate points. Nathan, for a philosophical Friday, spelled philosophical with an F. Mm-hmm. He goes, "What's a goal?" With the gif of the Spartan cheerleaders from Saturday Night Live with Will Ferrell and Sherry O'Terry going, "I don't know, I don't know, I don't know." So obviously the Liverpudlian fan, Nathan Pugh, still trying to figure out what's up with Liverpool.
That's their attack.
Whoa.
Fading into oblivion. Jurgen Klopp said that the defeat by Burnley was a massive punch in the face. Well, about sums it up. It's a tough one, not easy to explain. These boys are not the kind of person after a 7-0, which they beat Crystal Palace back on December 19th, and they haven't won since. These boys are not the kind of person after a 7-0 to think, we'll go like this. They worked hard tonight, and it didn't happen. If something doesn't work, you have to try harder, more often, longer. It was not easy to lose that game, and we did it. If I sit now here losing against Burnley and didn't score for the last 4 games and talk about the title race, how silly that would be. That is accurate. We thought defensively Liverpool would have their issues. No Virgil van Dijk, no Joe Gomez. It's not the defense. Since Sadio Mane scored in a 1-1 draw against West Brom on December 27th, which everybody lauded Big Sam for, Liverpool have had 87 shots at goal in the Premier League without scoring. Shots, not on goal, at goal. 27 shots against Burnley yesterday. Nada. Now, they did score 4 against Aston Villa in the FA Cup, but still. Yeah. No goals in their last 4 league games, 2 goalless draws, 2 1-0 losses. Klopp has not gone that long without his side scoring in the league since 2006 at Mainz. They're 4th in the table. They're a point ahead of Tottenham. They play Tottenham in their next league game. Sunday they play Manchester United in the FA Cup. That's 2 tough ones. Then Liverpool has West Ham, Brighton, Manchester City, Leicester, and Everton. Jarrett says Big Sam broke Liverpool. That would
I can't give him that credit.
No. Big Sam breaks a lot of things, but I don't think he broke
gravy
Liverpool.
boats.
Big Sam would never break a gravy boat. What are you talking about? That'd be a cherished possession. That's important.
For the contents. Crack it open like a Christmas present.
Have you seen a gravy boat, John? Why would you crack it open? That kind of defeats the purpose,
so
right?
That way you don't have to worry about spooning it out for whatever you're going to put the gravy on. You just crack it open and it just spills all over everything. So you don't have to worry about, being just nice about spooning it. It's like, and it's too much time. It's time consuming for a guy like that who likes gravy that much.
So you just dump it all on the table?
Dump it all. Well, no. What you do is you dump it over whatever you're going to pour it on in the first place. You just crack it open like an egg, and gravy goes everywhere, all over your Salisbury steak, and you're good to go. Here's
your food takes never fail to disappoint, John.
Liverpool's conversion rate since Christmas.
Yes.
Out of 20 teams in the Premier League, guess where they are?
Where?
They'd be 20th.
Well, yeah, they haven't scored.
1.1% conversion rate
goal in the game.
in the Premier League since Christmas. Number one is Leicester at 15%.
Mm-hmm.
Spurs is at 3, Arsenal 4, Manchester City 5, Everton 6, Leeds, and that's 6 of your 7. West Brom, by the way, second in conversion rate since Christmas. That to me just means that they're not taking a whole lot of opportunities.
They're not taking a whole lot of opportunities.
But Liverpool, 1.1% conversion rate since Christmas. Dead last.
That's pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
Not a fan.
No. And also on the board from Nathan, he says, also, the new Detroit Lions head coach, Dan Campbell, was talking yesterday about biting kneecaps off next season. Looks like Luis Suarez is a made-ready job next year, a consultant or something.
That guy? Dan Campbell, is that right?
Yeah.
That was the craziest introductory press conference I have ever heard for anything, not even just a sports thing.
Unless you're talking about Adam Gase.
No, it's like Adam Gase was a completely normal person compared to this. It was insane. I've never heard the things that Dan Campbell was saying, trying to act like they were good, and this is what your team should be doing. I'm just going to play it for you. It's like 30 seconds. This is the new Detroit Lions NFL coach, Dan Campbell, talking, I guess, about how tough his team is going to be.
Yeah, and there is colorful metaphors in here, if it's the clip that you're going to pull.
Colorful metaphors, but not certain words, right?
I think there is a bomb that does get dropped.
Man.
It's an S.
I think
20 seconds into his minute-long soundbite, that's his first S-bomb as head coach.
We're going to live dangerously. Here you go.
All right, and so this team's going to be built on, we're going to kick you in the teeth, all right, and when you punch us back, we're going to smile at you, and when you knock us down, we're going to get up, and on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, all right, and we're going to stand up, and then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down, all right, and on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap, and we're going to get up, and then it's going to take 3 shots to get us down, and when we do, we're going to take another hunk out of you. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing, all right, that's going to be the mentality. All right. And
that's nuts. That's nuts.
Yeah, that's the second half of that minute-long soundbite.
Oh, I don't need the first half.
No, I'm saying the first half had the S bomb in it, and he was talking about how the team was going to take on the personality of the city and be gritty and all that kind of stuff. Drop his S bomb.
No, John, come on now. Every coach says stuff like that. I'm talking about it. Have you ever heard a coach or anybody who got hired talk about biting your kneecap off?
That'd be a no, sir.
And then you bite a kneecap off, and then you get knocked down again, and you take the other kneecap off, and then you get knocked down again, and you take another hunk out.
From Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
That is not normal.
No.
Don't do that. Don't be that guy.
Mm-mm.
Jeez. Ridiculous.
Yeah. And I mean, and when I assume you saw the nameplate that's on the wall outside of his office.
No, when I hear a coach talk about biting kneecaps off, I don't look further. I change the channel.
His nameplate outside of his office door, Dan Campbell in large font. Line 2, head coach / the dude. Not kidding.
Well, Lottie frickin' da!
These people are getting jobs.
Yeah.
And Eric Bieniemy should be a head coach in the NFL, but we'll leave that one to the side. He doesn't talk about biting kneecaps off. Jeez. Anyway, on that note,
yeah,
I know that Steve Apolinski does not bite kneecaps off.
No.
If your kneecaps are bitten off by an insane football coach, I think Steve Apolinski could be able to help you out. What do you think, John? Do you think he'd be able to take care of you without your kneecaps after you run into Dan Campbell?
As a serious injury matter, I believe that, yes, he could. Apolinski and Associates, LLC, proud supporters of everything soccer down here in the SDH network for wrongful death and serious injury matters, perhaps having your kneecap bitten off by an NFL head coach or a player that's associated with that team. You can talk to Steve. You can talk to the firm. A couple different ways that you can do it. You can call Steve and get a free consultation, 404-377-9191. Or you can shoot Steve an email directly, steve@aa-legal.com. Or you can go on the World Wide Web, large device or small, type in aa-legal.com, hit enter, hit return, hit the arrow key, whichever advances you to the homepage for Apolinski and Associates, LLC. Low right-hand corner. A pop-up window pops up because that's what pop-up windows do. They pop up 24/7, 365 and a quarter. You can have your questions answered in that manner as well, should you so choose. Over 30 years of experience, over $40 million in judgments for their clients in Georgia and Alabama. So if Dan Campbell or the Detroit Lions had to do something, it would have to be in one of those two states if you wanted Apolinski and Associates, LLC, to help you out. Recognized as legally by Georgia Trend Magazine for being one of the top 100 firms in this here state of Georgia for wrongful death and serious injury matters. One place that you need to go, Apolinski and Associates, LLC. The website's aa-legal.com.
All right, let's see what the people had to say about that. Still blown away by kneecaps being bitten off. That's insanity.
That's just not right.
Yeah, that's just. I mean, Adam Gase took it to another level. What was it, 2 years ago, with his crazy eyes during his introductory press conference? Nothing.
Yes, for those on the Twitch pitch, here's your impression quickly.
No, you can't do it. Your eyes don't do that. Totally absurd. Alex Pacine gives you a 10.7 for the current event ad lib.
There you go.
Domer, 8.1 kneecaps. 7.5 for J-Dub. +1 for the excellent transition. Pretty good pacing all over, pretty good. A little off on the timing. 8 from Katie. Topical, good rhythm. 7 out of 10 from Perfect Tommy. The awkward pause ruined the spot for me. 7.5 from Burned. Very good finger wags. 9.15 from the Soccer for Good OG. Good transition from the topic.
Landing, I guess.
8 from Ragamuffin. 7.5 from Mizano. Met the low expectations. I like it, Mizano. There you go. Modiflow, 135 out of 147.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty
good.
good.
90. That's an A-.
That's pretty good. 7.5, a 9 from Matt Wagner until your kneecaps were taken out, and then drop you to an 8.5. Little quick, 8.4. That is your best score. You've had 2 of your all-time best this week.
Well, and by the way, Domer, we have broken the seal on the marinade that you so graciously brought by Office HD. Used it last night on chicken breasts, grilled chicken. Amazing stuff. The boss was incredibly impressed and loved every minute of it because it starts out sweet and then it has a kick right at the end of it. So you've got to be prepared for it. So a fantastic marinade and a topper for grilled chicken. Domer, thank you very much.
Nice job, Domer. Mike Conti is now with us on the line. Mike, I have a quick question for you to start things off.
Okay.
Do the Falcons play the Lions next season?
Actually, I think they do. Let me check really quick. I think they do, though. If so, they better watch their kneecaps, I guess.
Yeah. Do they need to talk to the referees before the game that now the coach has threatened to bite kneecaps off?
That's pretty crazy. The Falcons do play at home against the Detroit Lions.
Maybe they don't bite kneecaps off in other states.
Yeah, like I don't really know if he thought that was like funny or
was that the weirdest press conference you've ever seen?
I don't know. Like, John, you know this because you've been to these introductory press conferences a million times, and you don't know if like some marketing guy or some PR guy or comms guy got to him and said, "Hey, you know what? Our fans would really love it if you pretended like you went up there and you were a pro wrestling hype man or something like that." So we really need you to do this because fan interest in our team is really, really low right now. So just go up there and act a fool. I've actually seen that happen before.
Yeah.
And usually those types of coaches don't end up staying in those jobs very long. No. But it was just bizarre. And I hate to say it, I think a little bit embarrassing, to be totally honest with you.
Very. I was shocked when I saw that. I had seen the tweet, and you see something like it in a tweet, like, oh, crazy press conference, guy said some crazy things about kneecaps. You're like, yeah, but how crazy can it really be?
It was
all the crazy. It was every level of crazy.
Some lifetime assistants are just not used to having to do that, to speak to the media. He looked very much like a person who doesn't usually wear a coat and tie.
Yeah, he looked really tight.
Yeah, and I just think that sometimes the locker room dialogue, the certain language that you use with players, when you're not accustomed to dealing with the media, when you're a lifetime assistant coach and you go in front of the camera for the first time, you don't necessarily get to fully rehearse what you say, and a lot of times you revert back into what's comfortable for you, and maybe that kind of, I guess, motivational talk is what's comfortable for him.
Oh, maybe. All right, we got a little breaking news on the show front. In 26 minutes, we will be joined by Machop Chol, new Atlanta United homegrown signing. Mike, you want to hang out for that?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, we'll be adding Machop to the call at 10:30. So, John, you can tweet that one out, too.
Tweet that one out.
There you go.
Get Mateo on that.
Yeah, Mateo's a technical guy. The tweeting, yeah. Mateo sometimes goes silent on the Twitters, I'm learning. What do you think of the draft yesterday and how it all played out? It was a kind of a wild ride, but ultimately, I think a pretty good day for Atlanta United.
I think Atlanta United got very fortunate, and I can't wait to hear the backstory one day on how this all panned out. If they had some kind of intel that Bauer was going to slide as much as he was, because it's a total home run from the standpoint of you got a guy who you probably were going to take 5th overall, and you still ended up getting him in the second round, and you got $125,000 in GAM. That's an absolute home run. And, I think this would have been a very difficult draft to mock Jason. I don't blame Ivis in the least. No. I don't blame Charlie Davies and Matt Doyle in the least for getting quite a few predictions wrong about yesterday, because there were so many programs that did not play in the fall. The programs that did play in the fall had abbreviated seasons. You didn't have this massive combine down in Orlando where everyone was playing against each other and you could talk to scouts in real time. We don't really even have access to scouts or technical staff at the moment. So this would have been a very difficult draft to predict in the first place. But I think Bauer's film does not lie. Mm-mm. And I hope that he comes into Atlanta maybe, and I didn't really get the impression talking to him yesterday that he's going to be this way, but I almost hope in a way that he comes in here with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. You would think he would already have that, being from a small school, maybe with a point to prove about being from a small program like New Hampshire. But, the poor kid, I mean, they sent him a scarf and a hat. They had a GoPro in his house. They were going to put him on the show when he was picked. And by the time he was picked, they were no longer doing live draft coverage. And we've seen that happen before in the NFL where people will wait in the green room for a couple rounds and you feel so bad for them. But I hope that he turns this into a moment of determination. And I like the fact that he has a little bit of familiarity with the club and the facility because he's been down here to train. So I think it's just an absolute home run for Atlanta United, the way it worked out, where they got the guy they probably wanted all along, and they got a little bit of game on top of it.
Yeah, I got the sense, and when we had a chance to talk to him for the draft recap show, he was, I think, about to go into that, about being a little, not disappointed, but a little ticked off, in a good way. In a good way, it was something to prove, and he held back just a little bit. But I get the sense that he's going to come in, ready to go, and he knows the challenge that it's going to be because he understands the club, having been here and trained in a college combine. It's something that the club does. Again, it's not something you can publicize because these are guys who, have college eligibility, and you're taking a look. You're able to get them in and train, and probably working with the academy staff, the 2 staff, getting a good look at how they fit. And he liked the club, and they obviously liked him. We were to the point as the first round was going, Mike, Kevin and I are watching this thing, and it's like, man, trade back in. Like, trade up and grab him if you can, because I don't know why he's still here at this point. And then we're just watching each of the picks and hoping that he sticks around, and he did.
I get the impression that the intelligence gathering operation for Atlanta United has been cranked into high gear over the last couple weeks. I think they clearly had some intel on the Andrew Gutman situation that led them to trading up to number 1 in the, what was it, the reentry or the allocation? I don't even remember what draft that was now.
Yeah.
I think it was the reentry draft.
Reentry, I think.
But they obviously had some intel on Gutman that prompted them to go ahead and do that. And they had to have had some intel on Bauer that he was going to slip. And that he was going to – and you know why I say that, Jason?
Why?
Because I don't think swapping second-round picks with DC was accidental. Throwing that little piece into it where you move up 1 spot in the second round, that does not seem like an accidental addition to the $125,000 in GAM. I just have a feeling that Carlos or Paul or someone knew something, and it worked out just absolutely brilliantly for them.
Well, and Mike, I look at it, we were talking about it in hour number 1, and one of my thoughts about the draft in general, other than the scouting from team to team was so random, because you'd look at teams that had, in the mocks, you'd have folks that were in the second round, low second round, and they're being picked in the first round at 15 or 8 or 10 or wherever. I think that a lot of folks looked at the conferences that actually played games and had that as more recent information, and that lead them into directions that they may not necessarily had been in before. So you've got that ready evidence instead of looking at stuff in the past, and you're going with that stuff that's there in front of you and folks that are close by, because you can't recruit the way that you've been.
No question about it. And you saw all the ACC kids getting taken, just pick after pick after pick, right at the very top. John, you're 100% right. The ACC played about as close to a full fall season as anyone, and you saw the draft results kind of fall into place accordingly. But again, let me just restate. This would have been an impossible draft to mock.
Yeah.
Because even more difficult than the NBA draft. Because at least in the NBA, you had 80% of the college season plus. You didn't get a postseason, but at least you got 80% of the college season and kind of a modified combine situation in Chicago where scouts were able to do a certain degree of scouting. They were able to get, and I don't even know if it can work this way in MLS, but I know in the NBA, you're able to work out a player. I don't know if it happened this year necessarily because of the pandemic, but you're able to work out a player. You're able to get them into your facility. You're able to talk to them, interview them. These situations were just not possible for Major League Soccer this year. So usually I would be kind of jabbing and teasing at the so-called experts for getting a mock draft so wildly incorrect. But I think they earn a pass this year. My biggest conflict, guys, is that it almost made me nauseous. You have a Penn State guy going to Orlando.
I knew this was coming.
Yeah, here comes Hackenberg.
And you have a guy named Conti going to D.C. I didn't know how to handle that. I didn't know how to process that.
I knew when Hackenberg popped up in the draft that you were going to be hoping he would fall into that second-round pick.
Yeah, well, or anywhere other than that team.
It's stuck to me. It's like, hey, wait a minute. He's related to the quarterback.
Yeah, is he?
Yeah, he is.
I think
about that. Yeah. So Christian was from Virginia, but he went to like Fork Union Military. So I don't know if he was from Virginia or if he just went to high school there. But I don't know. I don't know much about the soccer playing Hackenberg, I have to admit.
He is related to him. I know that for a fact. I'm not 100% sure it's a brother.
Okay. Well, because he's playing for Orlando, let's hope that he has the same kind of professional career that the other. He did not have a very good professional career, but no, it was a good draft. It was a special day for a lot of young men yesterday. Really exciting. And you know, I was looking at Bauer. I was looking at the academy that he went to in New Hampshire. I was looking at some of the things about the University of New Hampshire program. And, you know, we talked about this with Machope the other day, how when you get to this point where you finally get to the moment now where you're drafted, think of all the people. Think of the academy coach he had, someone who came over from England to play college soccer in Kentucky and stayed and started this academy up in New Hampshire. Think of the technical staff. Think of his academy teammates. Think of even prior to that, at a youth level, when he was very, very much just in the infancy of his game, who had impacts on him as an extremely young man, maybe as a U8 or a U10. Think of all the people involved in that University of New Hampshire program. It really does take a large group of people to help a young man go from the point where he first kicks a soccer ball to the point where he's drafted in Major League Soccer. And as cool as it was for all those young men yesterday, I'm thinking a great deal about all the academy coaches, all the collegiate coaches, all the high school coaches, all the youth coaches, and teammates who had a role in a guy like Josh Bauer landing at Atlanta United yesterday. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, that's what's cool about this draft. I mean, it's different than, I guess, the NFL draft and the NBA draft in a lot of ways, especially the NFL draft, because you kind of expect almost every draft pick to sign. I know it doesn't always happen that way. Some of the later draft picks end up not signing a contract, but you expect those guys are going to sign and play, and you're going to see them in year one. That doesn't happen with this as much. It's a little bit more like the baseball draft, but it opens up that possibility for a guy like Bauer, and you know, he's pre-med, essentially. You know, he's a guy who has the dreams of being a professional soccer player. He's got a pretty good thing to fall back on, you know? So he's going to give it a go. And we've seen this happen where, you know, young players give that opportunity, go for it, put everything into it, and make it. And then put, you know, something like that off to the back burner until after they're done playing. We see some who just don't quite make it, and then are still able to go into what they want to go into. Bauer feels like a guy who has a lot of things going for him on the field as well. And I think he can compete. I think he can push the guys ahead of him, and also I think he'll be beneficial for a guy like Morales, for a guy like Campbell, to be playing next to somebody who's a seasoned vet at 24 right now.
I would be willing to bet that Atlanta might be the only professional sports city in this country that took players on multiple teams in the second round of their respective drafts who were pre-med majors, who were putting their pre-med careers on hold because Skylar Mays of the Atlanta Hawks was taken in the second round out of LSU, and he, like Josh Bauer, is a pre-med major who's putting his medical career on hold to chase his NBA dream. I'm going to be willing to bet that probably only Atlanta can say that.
That's a safe bet. That's really good.
But no, it's really, really cool. And I think, again, Atlanta United has a profile of a player that they like. We've heard Carlos talk about it a lot, right? And, in listening to Josh Bauer yesterday, I even asked him, is there a player that you try to emulate? He said Sergio Ramos. And this gets back to...
I was excited about that answer. I like that.
Yeah, yeah. And this comes back to him maybe coming in with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. Sergio Ramos is a big personality, who's an outstanding player, but a very, very big personality, but also extremely intelligent in how he assimilates to the game. And that feels like it is very much the Atlanta United profile, especially in what they look for in center backs. Michael Parkhurst, extremely intelligent. Jeff Lorenowitz, who, as far as I'm concerned, fits a center back profile.
Yeah.
And he's played center back. Extremely intelligent. Ivy Leaguer. Miles Robinson, extremely intelligent. Fernando Meza, extremely intelligent in the way that he reads the game. Anton Walks, who can play center back, extremely intelligent. So Bauer really, I think, fits with the profile of what Atlanta United likes in a center back. And I really hope that he's going to get games. I really do. I think it might end up being with Glassy and the twos at first. I like the fact that he says he has a relationship with Henry Apalou. That will probably help his assimilation into the second team if that's the direction that they want to go. I like the fact that USL Championships committing to play 32 games. So he's going to have an opportunity, hopefully, to play a lot of games there. And maybe he can be useful to the first team this year, maybe not. But I think he's going to get an opportunity to develop here in Atlanta. And I think Glassy is going to be a big part of molding him into the type of player that Atlanta United wants.
Did you see the player that was drafted first by LAFC, Mike, yesterday?
I saw a meme, actually, that LAFC just put out. I thought this was actually really funny. And I think, actually, did they get the other Danny?
Yeah, they got the other Danny Trejo to welcome Danny Trejo to LAFC.
No, that was awesome. Now, are you talking about the young man from Lawrenceville, or are you talking about Danny Trejo?
Trejo.
Because they took a guy from Lawrenceville, didn't they?
Ooh, that would have been later.
And I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Went to Ohio State, CC Uche?
Yes. Yeah. He's an interesting one because he got hurt in 2019 and missed most of the season. And then, of course, no 2020 season. So he probably would have went a lot higher, but you're waiting to see him come back. He's been training here locally with the Georgia Storm staff and getting fit. And, he's a guy from the old Georgia United Academy. He played in those games with, your Carltons, your Goslins. I don't think he would have played with Bello. He's a little bit older, so... But he was in that Georgia United group and went to Ohio State, and just had bad luck with the injuries. So that's a wild card pick late on him. I like the Trejo pick for LAFC. Now, I don't know how much they, followed his college career, but he was semi-local. He's a California kid. He's raw, but you know how it is in all sports, and I think both of you can relate to this, when you're watching a kid in high school or college, especially from a smaller program you might not know, and they kind of jump off the field to you, or they jump off the screen to you. Trejo had that for me a little bit. He's got a little bit of swagger, I think a little bit of explosiveness on the dribble. He could be a big surprise, and I think he really fits the way LAFC wants to play. I think that's a great pick. Guys,
I am very, very sorry. I am going to have to break away and go on 92.9. I apologize.
Oh, no worries. What breaking news do we have?
Channel 46 is reporting that Hank Aaron has died.
Oh, man.
So I'm going to have to break away. My apologies to Macho, but I'm going to have to break away.
No worries, Mike.
Go.
Thank you.
Take care, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Mike Conti 929. Make sure you're following him. Oh, man. It's one of those things that, I mean, how old, Hank Aaron?
86.
Yeah. I hate to hear that. I mean, absolute legend in Atlanta sports and a very important person in Atlanta, period, not just in sports.
Yeah. 46, posted it literally 2 minutes ago, and they run through a bunch of the statistics. Bio from the Hall of Fame, a quote from Muhammad Ali. The only man I idolize more than myself is what Muhammad Ali said about Hank Aaron.
Just an amazing person. You take the sports out of it for a minute. He's just an amazing person and a very important person, especially in this city. If you grew up here like I did, I mean, I did not see Hank Aaron play. Not quite that old. But you knew, I mean, as soon as I knew anything about sports, I knew who he was. I knew, his impact. And he was always around with the Braves. And he was involved in so many different things in Atlanta, too. I mean, it wasn't just he was a great athlete who played in Atlanta and happened to stay in Atlanta. He was involved in making the city a better place. Always giving his fame and his stature to good causes. I remember the last game at Turner Field, and I didn't go. I was watching everything on TV and the ceremony, and they brought him out. I want to say that he took home plate from Turner Field, and, I mean, they had a police escort and everything, drove it up to now Truist to install it. And it was Hank who did that, and just the respect that they gave him then, and the Braves always did right by him. I think did a good job by him. So, yeah, it's a sad day in Atlanta because, again, it's more than sports.
One of the first posters, we always had the posters on the walls growing up and things like that. One of the first posters I ever had was the Walter Use Sports Illustrated poster of the swing on 7:15, where it's the follow through is there and the lash out is there, and it's that follow through, and you see everything for a right-handed batter, and you see the 44 on the back, and you see him looking at it going away, and you remember the calls by Milo Hamilton off of Al Downing, Vin Scully's call from the Dodgers of 7:15. Vin laid out for a minute and 40 seconds just so everyone could hear the crowd and everything. So if you haven't heard those calls in a while, find the Vin Scully call. It's a little different to hear it from that perspective, but Milo Hamilton and Vin Scully for 7:15, just tremendous moments of history, not just in sports, but for us here in America. Sad day that Hank Aaron passes at 86.
Yeah, it's going to be, a big story all over Atlanta, and it's going to dominate the sports coverage here, as it should, as it absolutely should. Machoke Chol will join us here in about 5 minutes. We've got a few other things on the docket, games today to keep an eye on. The biggest one is in Germany, Borussia Dortmund and Borussia Mönchengladbach. Dortmund has not looked good, to the point that Edin Terzic, their manager, questioned his team's will, saying heads went down after Leverkusen scored in their last 2-1 loss. He's looking for the turnaround against Mönchengladbach, but Gladbach's on a 5-game unbeaten run, including a win over Munich. Also, off the field, Mönchengladbach reportedly, according to Bild, have made first contact with Ajax manager Erik ten Hag for a possible departure of Marco Rose, which most people are expecting will happen and could go to Dortmund. Ten Hag would be quite a replacement for Mönchengladbach. That's pretty smart to go ahead and jump out of that, and that makes it pretty clear that Marco Rose is going to go. What are the numbers on the Dortmund-Mönchengladbach game?
Dortmund and Mönchengladbach. As I was looking at the standings, Dortmund is a plus 112 on the road. Borussia Mönchengladbach a plus 230, and your draw is basically a plus 280.
What are you thinking?
Anytime, and you've said this before, and I'm going to apply what you've said to this go round. I said that any time that you can get a plus 200 on a home team to chase after it. So at the very least, I would say draw, but I'm leaning toward Borussia Mönchengladbach here at that plus 230.
Yeah, I gotta go with Mönchengladbach. I can't believe in Dortmund at the moment.
Yeah,
I have no faith in Borussia Dortmund at the moment. So, yeah, I'm going with Mönchengladbach, especially with that kind of number. That's a little crazy. I would not have expected that.
And considering from 3 to 7th, they're only separated by 1 point in the standings right now. So, as close as things are with the recent run of form of Dortmund, kind of hiccuping their way through. Only winning 2 of their last 5, and they're only a point ahead right now at 29 points to 28. And Gladbach with their run of form, I've got to go with Gladbach here.
Yeah, I've absolutely got to go with Mönchengladbach in this one. I feel pretty good about that one now that I'm looking at it. Now I'm looking at the numbers. Other games, Benevento in Serie A is hosting Torino. First game for Torino's new manager. PSG without Pochettino are hosting Montpellier. Pochettino is still recovering from COVID. I believe Mbappe is trying to get his first goal in 4, which is not all that common. Kylian Mbappe not finding a goal in 4 games. Wasteful with his finishing lately. They should be okay. I mean, what are the numbers on PSG and Montpellier?
PSG and Montpellier League, once again, courtesy of our friends in the composite. Ooh. All right. Time to play cliffhanger. Montpellier, what do you think?
I have no idea. I'll go plus 500.
Plus 1560.
Jeez.
PSG's a minus 590, and your draw's a plus 705.
Jeez. Bernd is arguing with us. He says that you should take Dortmund or the draw against Mönchengladbach. I'm gonna argue with you, Bernd. I have no belief in Dortmund right now. It's not so much that I think Mönchengladbach has been amazing. They've been better than Dortmund. So I'm going Mönchengladbach. We'll trade soft drinks next time we see each other if we're wrong on that one. The other big game in kind of a weird way today is FA Cup. Wolves go on the road to Chorley FC. Yes, Chorley, 6th division, Chorley. They are trying to pull another upset. See if they can pull this off. They've earned $475,000 in prize money and from TV appearances. That is big help for them with the pandemic. Wolves, they played Wolves in the FA Cup in the 4th round in 1986. Wolves were not what they are now. Wolves is instead a team that made the last 16 of the Europa League last year. So this is going to be a bit of a challenge. I don't even know if there's numbers on that one.
There are.
Oh, jeez.
And they're fairly similar to PSG and Montpellier, to be honest.
Nice.
Chorley is a plus 1485. Your draw is north of plus 600, and Wolves are a minus 525.
Don't put anything on Chorley.
No!
You're crazy if you do.
Danger, Will Robinson.
Yes, don't do that. All right. Mateo is going to try to get Machop Chol on the line for us right now. Let's see if Mateo can pull some magic. And thanks to Chris Winkler and everybody over at Atlanta United for getting this done for us, getting Machop with us. Machop, hey, it is Jason and John from Soccer Down Here. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Good morning.
Good. Thanks for taking the time for us, man. I really appreciate it. I had a chance to talk to you yesterday, too, and kind of wanted to follow up on everything. Yesterday, you saw a lot of your Wake Forest teammates from college get drafted all over the league. How cool was that to see a lot of your friends get picked in for their first professional spots?
I was probably more excited for them than I was for myself, man. I was just smiling from ear to ear, and I just sent them all messages, and I was just watching the whole day, just waiting to see where they would end up. And when they all got called, I was just very happy, very excited for all of them.
What's it like to just kind of lay back and watch everything? You're just kind of kicking back in the chair in front of the computer, just hanging out. You know, what's it like to watch everything in front of you, knowing that everything with you, it's already taken care of? What's it like to just kind of be a spectator for a change?
It was for sure a big relief. That's what I'll say. It was definitely a relief. But now I know that it's time to get to work, and this is just the start, and this doesn't mean that everything is already set in place for me and everything's already secured, so I just have to keep working.
It's been very cool to see the fans respond to your signing and starting to get to know you a little bit. You know, we talked about yesterday, I've known you for a long time, and it's exciting to see you get this opportunity. For people who don't know your story, you know, you came to the DeKalb County area, Tucker. We met in Clarkston. You played for the Decatur YMCA. How important was your time at the Decatur YMCA and the coaches you had there to kind of get to the point you are now?
I think that time was very important for me because I learned quite a few things from being there, especially being there with Lagos at the same time and watching him play and do really well. And at the time, he was going to national team camps and residency. And for me, that was a big inspiration for me and what I wanted to do with my career. And also the people around me, they were just like family away from my actual family. And they nurtured me and took care of me and helped me get to where I am today.
You played for Jeff Newberry at Decatur Y, right?
I played with Jeff for a few years, and then I started playing with Toby.
That's right.
All the way up to Atlanta.
What's something that those guys taught you back in the day that has stuck with you?
I think I get a little bit of different things from both coaches. I think what I got from Toby was a lot of his passion and his drive rubbed off on me. And then Jeff was Jeff, and I think he was always very calm, and he always gave us good advice in the moments we really needed it. So,
if we had come to you at your time at the Decatur Y and said that what happened this week would happen to you as a professional soccer player, what would you have told us then at the Decatur Y if we had told you that what is happening would happen in your career? What would you have told us?
Honestly, I would probably just laugh and be like, "You guys are kidding, huh?" But yeah, I wasn't really expecting this from playing at Decatur Y and then to Atlanta to Wake Forest and then to now. It's just been a gradual increase in my game and in my development. So
you came in that first year with the academy, and everything was brand new, and everything was still kind of getting figured out with what Atlanta United's academy was going to look like. But you guys had a really strong team. What was that transition like for you going into a professional kind of environment?
I think it was very similar to my transition at Wake. First got there, I was like a little fish in a big pond. There were a lot of great players around me, and everyone had to earn their spot on the team. And I think once I really settled in and got my feet and my confidence, things just went smooth from there.
When it comes to gaining that confidence, I know that's something that the coaches at Wake have mentioned about your growth as a soccer player. What else do you think you need to work on as a soccer player so you can succeed at the next level?
For me, I think my decision making for sure. I definitely want to work on being both-footed. My aerial threat, I think, needs improvement for sure, both on the defensive side and attacking side of the ball. So,
one thing I was really impressed talking to Bobby at Wake Forest yesterday. We had a chance to chat with him after we talked to you on the recap show, and he talked about all of the work you put in away from your number one strength in the 1v1s and beating people on the dribble. That has not diminished by any stretch, but you've added defensive responsibility. You've added the movement off the ball. You know, those kinds of areas. How hard was it for you to work on your weaknesses as a player?
It was difficult at first, but once you start seeing progress and results, it just makes you want to work on those weaknesses even more. But at the same time, you can't forget about your strengths, and you got to keep your tools sharp. So you got to maintain your strengths and continue to work on your weaknesses. But yeah.
How difficult is it to be confident with both feet? I mean, because I know that we're all dominant in one aspect of our lives in one way or another, but how difficult is it to put in all that work to be confident with both feet so it's an interchangeable thing? How difficult is it, and how much of a challenge is that for you?
For me, I would say it's difficult, but I think, like I said, once I get rolling and continue to work on that weakness, it becomes something that just becomes natural, and I think it just gets better as time goes on. So,
Machop, we got a few questions from our listeners on soccer down here. Kefsi wanted to know, who did you consider at Wake? What team in the ACC did you consider to be your biggest challenge, your biggest rival, or somebody you just really enjoyed scoring against?
I would say for sure, my favorite ACC rival would probably be Clemson.
It's a good series with them. You guys always have some battles with Clemson.
Yeah, I don't know why Clemson, but yeah, I would always end up scoring or assisting against them, so it would always be a fun game for me.
DK asks, who do you try to base your game on? Who do you model your game on, or your favorite player right now?
Well, I have quite a few favorite players, but I like Neymar and Mbappe for their flair and their style of play. But who I like to model my playing style off is Ousmane Dembele.
Kevin Egan became your biggest fan when you said that one yesterday. He was very excited about that answer. Byrne wanted to know if you are going to try to learn some Spanish, or do you already speak any Spanish?
Oh, no, Spanish is, I've been learning quite a great amount of Spanish. I've known some Spanish for a while. And at Wake, especially my freshman year, there was a good amount of Spanish-speaking people on the team. So one of my closest friends, Omir Fernandez, I would speak Spanish with him often. So
that'll help you.
Spanish won't be hard.
That'll definitely help you here. El Mataflow asks about who's been your favorite teammate so far.
That's a favorite teammate so far. Where at
let's say at Wake.
At Wake, well, it was really hard because I would say I'd have to say my favorite teammate would definitely be Omir, because I think he really helped me at a certain stage in my Wake career, and then he helped me gain a bit of confidence, and he also told me how it really was. He never really sugarcoated anything with me about my playing and my performances. So
Have you
I
had a
think he was
chance?
definitely my favorite. And,
Have
yeah.
you had a chance to talk to some of the guys who you played with at Wake who went on to play in MLS and talk about their experiences a little bit and learn from them?
Yeah. I talk to them. I keep in touch with all of them. It's just exciting to see all of them doing well in their field. So I keep in touch with them.
Very cool.
But it's exciting to see them.
Last one from Mezzano wanted to know, who are you most excited to play alongside with Atlanta United?
I think that one is pretty easy for me. Definitely Joseph.
Yeah, any winger would be loving to play alongside Joseph right now, huh?
Yeah, I get home and my brother's like, "Oh, did you train with Joseph today?"
Very, very cool.
What's the one thing that you think that fans would be surprised about you as a person that they don't know? Is there something that if about you that if you said, "Hey, this," that would surprise them? It's like that you're a piano virtuoso, that you can play saxophone, that you can, juggle 95 different things at the same time. Is there one thing about you that you think folks would be surprised at if they learned it?
That's a great question.
You're good at. It's like you're good at. You knock out the New York Times crossword puzzle in like 12 minutes. Those kinds of things.
One thing. I really like music, and I like to make some beats and sometimes play around on the mic. So that's probably something somebody would know.
Okay, very cool. Yeah. Well, then we'll finish with this, because when we had Jackson Conway on, we talked about kind of pregame music and stuff you would listen to before the game. Do you have any certain songs that you listen to before you play to get you ready, to get you pumped up?
Yeah, for me, it kind of depends on my mood, but I listen to a wide variety of genres of music, but for sure I like my rap and hip-hop, like Nipsey Hussle. I listen to him maybe before a game, and Gunna. I like a lot of the Atlanta artists, so he's one of my favorites.
Very cool. Well, Machope, man, we're very happy that you're part of Atlanta United. We are excited to see you play for the club this year. John and I call the Atlanta United 2 games. I'm on radio for the first team, so I'm excited to call some Machope Chol goals and assists this year. It's going to be a lot of fun, but it's going to be great to see you in the red and black stripes. Thanks for taking some time for us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Be good.
Machope Chol. Make sure you're following him on Twitter. Chol Machope on Twitter. Such a great kid. Can't tell you how excited his college coach, Bobby Moose, was for him yesterday. We had a chance to talk to him. I mean, we talked for a little bit longer than was on the recap show, and so excited for him. It's a great story, and the Decatur Y, if you look at the clubs around town that produce a lot of players who go on to play in college, a lot of guys who go on to play in the pros. The Decatur YMCA is one that you probably don't think of, and they work in some really tough areas, and they put a lot of resources into working with kids in the Clarkston and Tucker and Stone Mountain areas and providing them opportunities. And Machope is one who has taken every door that was opened and made every opportunity even greater. Such a hard-working player. And, when you see a guy come to the academy and then go to college, not everybody puts in the work that he did to get better and to work on those weaknesses. It's really easy to lean on your strengths, especially in the college game, and just do what you do best it's harder to work on what you're not good at, right? And
Yep.
he has put so much into the areas of his game that I remember watching him in the academy and saying, he's got some special qualities, but it's not quite complete yet. So it was understandable that he didn't sign a homegrown deal early. He went to Wake, and he's a much, much better player because of that time there. It was the right move for him, and he comes into Atlanta, and you see him running at defenders, and you could see him running at defenders at Mercedes-Benz Stadium and creating those assists for Joseph Martinez. He's got that kind of ability.
Absolutely looking forward to seeing the next steps for Machopcho. Glad that he could hang out with us. Watched the interview that you and Kevin did with him on the Super Draft recap yesterday, and be able to add to that today. Very, very cool. So we can let everybody know a little bit more about Machop. And it's good to know that the two of you have that shared interest in music and dropping beats. That's when he started going there, and I saw your eyes light up, and it's like, all right, there we go down that road. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I'll have to get Machop to make me a mixtape. So
There
I
you
know
go.
what all the current new stuff is, so I can get caught up. I need to get caught up on it. Nipsey Hussle's a good shout, though. That's good stuff. All right, final questions from you guys out there on a wide-open Freestyle Friday, whatever you want to ask. One other bit of news, well, two other bits of news that I think are very important. Pep Guardiola confirmed this morning that Kevin De Bruyne is out for 4 to 6 weeks. That's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I thought if he would miss 4 games or more, that they would be in trouble. Let's see how they handle it. But the Manchester City title race that a lot of people have said they are the best team in the Prem. Without De Bruyne, you got to wait and see a little bit, in my opinion.
Yeah, they've got FA Cup tomorrow, West Brom, Sheffield United, then on Wednesday, February 3rd, then you've got Liverpool on the 7th. So between now and the end of the month, there's some points that you should be getting. But then you've got Manchester City, Tottenham, Arsenal, Champions League with Borussia Mönchengladbach starting February 7th. That stretch is tough. That 17 days where you've got those 4 matches, that's going to be tough right there at the end of that injury timetable for De Bruyne.
Jason Nix asks if City will add a striker during the January window. Aguero was ready to come back and then tested positive for COVID, so he is out. They're not linked to anybody. I wonder if they need to. I kind of think they do.
Yeah.
But you got to move fast because you're running out of time. Maybe they go talk about Rafael Santos Borre. Maybe that's their short-term replacement. They try to figure that out. They're going to have to get a little creative because I do think you need a little something now. If De Bruyne is going to miss 4 to 6 weeks, you got to have a threat coming from somewhere. And striker's been an issue, so maybe that's where you go because you're not going to find a true short-term Kevin De Bruyne replacement. It's just that doesn't exist. Other silly season stuff, and who knows, maybe they get into the mix for a loan for Martin Odegaard because right now it looks like he's headed to Arsenal. He wanted to go back to Real Sociedad. Real Madrid does not want to help Real Sociedad, and they shouldn't. It's 100% accurate. Guillaume Balage at the BBC said, Real Sociedad is 6th in the table. They're 3 points off the top 4. Real Madrid is fighting for Champions League qualification with Real Sociedad. It doesn't make sense to help them. Makes no sense. Arsenal wants to get this done as fast as possible to get him done, to get it in, maybe even as soon as today. Also, probably to beat anybody else who might be trying to come in on this. There's other Premier League teams unnamed that have been chasing Odegaard. It'd be a loan just till the summer. I think that's the right move from the Real Madrid perspective. You don't want to completely give up on him just yet. He's really, 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 really close. But for whatever reason, Zidane doesn't rate him in the same way. Would Marcelo Gallardo potentially rate him in the right way? At least the way I think, anyway. His name has come up as a possible successor to Zinedine Zidane. Now, it started with a rumor out of Argentina that was then picked up by Spanish outlets. But Marcelo Gallardo's name has started to resonate a little bit as a possible replacement for Zinedine Zidane, and that would probably be in the summertime. Gallardo has not 100% committed to moving forward with River Plate. They talked on Wednesday. It's still a little up in the air. Situation with Borre and others. Enzo Perez is another one. He doesn't know what kind of squad he's going to have. And I think Gallardo is at a point in his career where if he feels like he's not going to have a squad that can compete, maybe it's time to walk away now. Now, he's under contract through the end of the year, so I don't know how they handle that, but I don't think River would want to start a fight with him and do that. If he wants to walk away, I think they'd be okay with it and move forward. But his name's come up in or at least around Real Madrid's job. It's not fair to say it's come up in Madrid just yet. Other silly season bits of news. Fikayo Tomori has landed in Milan. He reportedly, and this is according to Football Italia and other sources, his contract has already been submitted to Serie A. He's doing his medical exams today. Some of them he already did in London. He is at Chelsea. It would be a loan to Milan. It would be with an option to buy in the region of 28 million euro. And Stefano Pioli wants to include him in the squad to face Atalanta tomorrow. That is why that contract was already registered. So assuming everything checks out, you could see Tomori in the red and black stripes of Milan tomorrow. Christian Eriksen, new club mentioned for him. They have ruled it out, though. Leicester ruled out a loan move for Inter midfielder Christian Eriksen. Sad Christian Eriksen, still listening to My Chemical Romance and The Cure and early Depeche Mode quite a bit. £300,000 a week wages. Leicester said, yeah, we can't do that. That's according to the Telegraph. Dele Alli, PSG, it's still being talked about. According to 90 Minutes, Ali has asked Daniel Levy not to block a potential move to PSG. We'll see if he does. Declan Rice, not going to happen in January, but according to reports, West Ham could lower their asking price on him, 22-year-old midfielder, English national team. They could lower that price to about £50 million. I think it was talked about closer to 60 before. It's all because of the effects of the pandemic. We talked about the Bundesliga earlier. A big club who is not in a good spot is Hertha Berlin, 2 points ahead of the playoff spot. The bottom two get relegated in the Bundesliga. The next one is in a playoff. They're 2 points ahead of that. They're in 14th right now out of 18. Couple players, they're trying to find a way to salvage their Bundesliga spot. Papu Gomez, who is still out there on the market. Atalanta doesn't want to send him to another Italian team that is a competitor. Again, it makes total sense. Hertha Berlin have made an inquiry about Papu Gomez, 32 years old. Milan has chased him. Trabzonspor, who's linked to every player in the world at every time. Their name has come up. Hertha would be a really interesting one for Papu Gomez. Julian Draxler is another one that has come up for Hertha Berlin. He's played 465 minutes for PSG this season. He's missed games with a hamstring injury. He's 27. He was reportedly going to be on the way out when Pochettino arrived. Jogi Löw has said that if you want to play in the Euros this summer, you need to go play somewhere. He would go into Hertha and play straight away. We'll see what Hertha can do there. Other South American updates. Gabriel Veron, who is the latest Brazilian wunderkind. 18 years old with Palmeiras. He'll be in the Copa Libertadores final next weekend. Has a £53 million release clause, according to Sport and 442. Manchester United are winning the race to sign him. They are chasing the very young players to... It's at least a plan, it looks like, of signing young stars and bringing them through. We'll see if they keep the patience with Ole and they keep moving forward with it, but I'm actually starting to think they have some semblance of an idea of a coherent plan they're trying to follow. Remember Moises Caicedo?
Yes.
Allegedly, Sky Sports says that he is expected to fly to England today to finalize a £4.5 million move to Brighton. Now, don't know about the Belgian club situation now. Don't know how that works, but that was the rumor, is that he'd go to Brighton and then get loaned out to the leading team in the second division in Belgium, which feels like a waste. See. The work permit is reportedly done. He should qualify with the games he's played. Caicedo to Brighton for not a whole lot of money. A little surprising, but he wants to go to Europe. There you go. That's where it stands. What else do we have on the Twitters before we go? Sorry. One more. And I knew I forgot it because it was in a different section. Norwich, Sebastian Soto.
Right.
I think I am in charge of the Sebastian Soto hype train.
Woo-hoo.
Norwich has recalled Sebastian Soto from his loan to Telstar in the Dutch second division. 20 years old, 7 goals in 12 games for Telstar. Scored twice for the U.S. national team against Panama in November. Also played in December against El Salvador. Norwich said the recall is subject to confirmation of a British work permit. That whole process has changed. That's why he didn't go to Norwich initially. Now it looks like he could be headed to Norwich and get that work permit and play. They are at the top of the championship with 53 points, 7 ahead of John Nelson's Swansea City.
Far up.
Sebastian Soto to Norwich. I like it.
There you go. A couple of things from Tafka on Twitter and a piece of news that has popped up in the last hour.
Okay.
Tafka, I'm not criticizing any particular person or sport, and it's certainly not a perfect occurrence in soccer either. But, and this is in all caps, but I love that soccer has so many uber-intelligent players, back to lowercase, and that intelligence itself is a sought-after attribute in the sport.
True. It's good. Mike agrees.
Yes. And then Tafka says, if the Ibarra rumor is true, do you think it's the club's answer to the need for a top number 6 or simply a talent grab that came available?
I mean, it's both. He's not a top number 6 right now. You can't say that about somebody who's played 11 games. And Joe Boss had asked about Ibarra as well on the Twitch pitch. He's got limited experience. He's 19. So, no, he's not a top number 6. But can he be the number 6 that you need? Yeah, he could. Yeah, Matt, I know what you're saying about I've seen he's more than an 8. He's played 10 games, first off. Nobody knows exactly what he is. He's played in a double pivot at Argentinos, 2 holding midfielders behind 1. Those holding midfielders have the ability to step forward and to get forward and contribute in a 2 situation. If it is what we expect here, where it is 1 behind 2, that midfielder stays home. His numbers, and I'm not going to tell you what he is and what he isn't because I haven't seen a lot of him. He's played a handful of games. His numbers make him sound far more defensive. His defensive actions are very, very high, which is good for this kind of role. The things that jump out to me about his stat line to play the 6 in what we would expect Gabriel Heinze's team to look like. 8.1 duels won per game, over 55% of the duels. Defensive actions, 4.1 tackles per game. This is all from the Copa Diego Armando Maradona. 2.2 interceptions per game. That's a lot of activity defensively. Passing, good. As he played more, I saw him get more involved when looking back at some individual games. I think his best games, he was more involved in the passing game. Good on the long balls, and that was something that jumped out to me. Per Sofa Score with their rating system, which is all down to stats. It's not like somebody coming in and saying how you guys judge John's reads. It is all statistics. Ibarra was the man of the match twice in the 10 games that he played for Argentinos in this last campaign. Once against Independiente and once against River, which is a pretty good one to be your best player in that 1-1 draw that Argentinos had. And let's dig into that game a little bit. So Ibarra's numbers from the game against River. You can take a look at his heat map, and it definitely looks like a defensive midfielder. Does he get forward some? Yes, he does. But again, he's in a double pivot. One has to get forward and help and join a little bit. 54 touches. Not a ton on the ball, which is to be expected in a game against River where Argentinos had 42% of the ball. 3 out of 7 on the long ball. 10 out of 15 on duels. 8 out of 12 on the ground. 2 out of 3 in the air. That's really good. 1-7 tackles. That's really, really good. 2 interceptions, blocked a shot, very active defensively. It's against River. You're going to have to be active defensively if you're playing in that role. Let's look at the game that was an even better rating, his best performance of the Copa Diego Armando Maradona against Independiente. Now, it was in a losing effort. They lost 2-0 to Independiente in this match. They had 60% of the ball. Again, it's a different type of opponent. 14 shots as a team and what they created out of it. He was rated as an 8.3 in that match. That would mean he was the best player on the field in a 2-0 loss as a holding midfielder. Now, you look at the heat map, and it's a different game. You have the ball more. You're forward more. You're playing in the other team's half more. His greatest area of heat on the heat map is right about midfield and in his half. It's a little bit higher up the field. That makes total sense because you have more of the ball. You're playing in the other team's half more. Now let's look at how the numbers change because of the opponent. 75 touches against Independiente. 32 out of 45 on his passing. More of the ball. But also, you're asking him to do a little bit more with that passing. 10 out of 15 on long passes. That's over 25 yards. That's a big deal. Had a couple of shots. Duels, which is a strong point in his game. 11 out of 17 on the ground, 4 out of 6 in the air. He's got a little bit of height to him. He's good in the air. Committed 2 fouls. That's fine. 3 clearances, 1 blocked shot, 4 interceptions, 10 tackles. 10 tackles. And sorry, Jason Nix, duels. The duels.
Duels.
Gotta love that from Frank. 10 tackles is absurd. Now, those were his best 2 performances of the last tournament. He had one other where he was rated over a 7 against San Lorenzo, again in a 2-0 loss. We'll take a quick look at that one. And they were in there 4-2, 3-1. That's typically what Argentinos played in the season. He played 74 minutes in this one, 28 out of 34 passing, 82%. 3 out of 5 on the long ball, and we'll take a quick peek at the numbers. Possession was about 50-50, 51-49 to Argentinos, so a little more of an even game. The duels, he was 7 of 9 on the ground. Again, very good. Defensive actions, I mean, this is what jumps out at me. 3 interceptions, 6 tackles. Like, that's a lot. Okay, let's take a look at a game that was not great, but didn't involve a red card because that's a huge mark against him. His 2 worst games from a rating perspective were with red cards. That takes a huge knock on your stats. Let's go to the next to last game that Argentinos played, and it was against Huracan. It was in a win. It was a 1-0 win for Argentinos. Possession, again, about 50-50. It was 51 to Huracan this time. Let's look at how involved he was in this one. And he plays a lot of times next to another really good young holding midfielder for Argentinos, Fausto Vera, who's got more experience. So Ibarra, not much of the ball in this one, 8 of 19 on his passes, didn't see it much. You don't see as many holding midfielders in Argentina get a ton of the ball. When you look at their numbers, you don't get as much of that. Duels, he was 8 of 15 in this one, about 50%. Not great. 2 interceptions, 3 tackles, so not quite as involved. The numbers came down a little bit. But even that, a bad performance, 3 tackles is not bad. So that's what we know right now. Franco Ibarra, I think he's definitely being looked at as more of a 6. He played in a holding midfield role consistently for Argentinos this year, but it was a double pivot, so he had freedom to step forward when the time called for it. But you look at his heat map for the season, it's predominantly in his own half. That's far more of a defensive midfielder.
Last piece of news that I had on my side from about an hour ago, thanks to Reuter and Linehan. The USL is aiming to launch a Women's Pro-Am League in the spring of 2022, per sources with knowledge of the plan. Details still being finalized, but a progress update provided to the USL's Board of Governors provided some clarity. Not going to be a direct competitor of the NWSL. They're forming an advisory board which hopes to involve members from the NWSL, US Soccer, and CONCACAF. Whether they're on board or not, the USL will remain collaborative with the 3 organizations to include feedback in the creation. League would likely resemble a level between USL League One and League Two as a professional development league with amateur eligibility.
That's an amazing fit. And this is one of the most frustrating things about American soccer at times, because when USL was talked about having a women's league or starting a women's league, nobody thought that it would be this kind of a league. Everybody was like, well, why are you trying to compete with the NWSL? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that? That's horrible. Why are you doing this, USL? We didn't know. Nobody had the reporting on this. What has USL done on the men's side? They have become the lower divisions. Not all of them. You have NISA, you have the NPSL, you have the UPSL. But they have focused on the lower divisions. That's what they're sounding like they're going to do on the women's side. And kind of a hybrid, where it would be like League Two in that it has amateur players, but like League One in that it has professional players. You got to deal with the NCAA on that, and I would assume that's going to be a big part of what they're trying to work on. That's amazing, because you can't create the women's soccer infrastructure you need in this country if you just have 12 Division I teams. You need lower division teams to do this. What USL is doing potentially with this is a game changer, because it puts more women's players in professional environments than ever before. That's huge, 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 huge. Wow. At 11:07, when we're already 7 minutes into stoppage time, R2 Blueberries on the Twitch pitch says, why did the U.S. not adapt the promotion relegation system? I need like 6 hours and probably a 6-pack of beer and a lot of history books to
Pro Rel down here.
No, it's not even, because it's so involved. Very quickly, R2, you're only now at a point where you're not worried about professional soccer in this country folding. That's why it hasn't ever evolved into that. Whenever it came up in U.S. soccer history, and you've got to know the whole history to understand it, because I think a lot of people just either find it new or come at the American game from other countries, other cultures, and say, oh, well, this is dumb. MLS started in 96, and a lot of people said that it was the last chance for soccer to make it in this country. That was the mentality, because the North American Soccer League folded in 1984, and you didn't have another major professional league until 96. And a lot of investors said, I'm not risking anything to do this. I got to have my investment be protected. And even still, it almost folded about 5-6 years in. You're only now at a point where you've got thriving first division and a thriving second division. I mean, you then go beyond it, like the second division in the 2000s, probably 50, 60 different teams that came and went. Teams would come, play for a couple of years, fold, go away, because they couldn't sustain it as a business. It's only now that you're starting to get where it's sustainable at different levels, and you still see teams fold. You still see teams at the second division level fold, like Reno. You see teams below that fold, like Lansing, who came in for 1 year and then folded. It's not sustainable yet to move up and down divisions, because if you follow the game, like teams that get relegated, look at what Leeds had to go through for a long period of time and how many owners they went through. If somebody didn't buy them and then buy them again and then buy them again, there wouldn't be a Leeds right now, because relegation was very hard for them. It affected them. They also ran their business in a way that a lot of teams in the lower divisions in England do. They run it to get promoted, and if they don't get promoted, there's no plan B. It's tough. So in the U.S., it's been about survival. That's why you haven't had promotion relegation, because the business hasn't been able to handle it yet. Will you ever get there? I kind of think you do. I think you do eventually, but I don't think it looks like it does in every other league. I think it's different. I think it's a modified version. So we'll see. I think you'll first see, and I mean, I've said this before, it's not a crazy prediction. I think you'll first see promotion relegation between the USL Championship and USL League One.
Yep.
Because I think the levels of business and entry and revenues and expenditures are far more comparable and adaptable between those two. To go from USL Championship to MLS right now, I mean, you're expanding your business and your net spend 2, 3, 4, maybe 5-fold. And there's just not many businesses that can do that in 6 months. When you get promoted and then go into the next season, honestly, you need to do it instantly. There's just not many that can handle that. And there's not the money for, the TV money that's in England and in some other leagues when you get promoted and you get access to these funds. That's not there. There's not the parachute payments for teams to get relegated because then they can be okay. That's because of the TV deal in England. You don't have those things here. So, when people point to those, they're not here. They're not going to be here just because you have promotion relegation. And I've argued with people for decades. There's not some large list of sponsors sitting out there that are saying, oh, well, we're not going to invest in American soccer until it has promotion relegation. Could there be a couple? Sure. But doing it doesn't change the business overnight. So you got to be careful about it. That's all. That's my very quick American history on promotion relegation. 5 minutes. I can't believe that was that fast. There we go.
Really quickly, since we're talking about the USL Championship, Board of Governors meeting, flexible start date of May 1st for the championship and for League One. Teams split into 4 divisions in the championship, 32-game slate, 27 weeks through the end of October, playoffs scheduled for November.
Got to be adaptable, and they've built in a lot of adaptation into that. I think it makes total sense. Hopefully Atlanta United 2 is on the early side of that and get games in quickly so we can see some of these young players play. I'm excited to see it. I hope that's a good sign for MLS to start, sometime in early April. There is the labor situation to deal with. Hopefully they get that resolved. But, yeah, I think if MLS can start in early April and USL's a few weeks after that, that's not too shabby. And could there be certain parts of the country that are tricky with that? Yeah, there could be. And again, we don't know. There's no way to predict it. We're all guessing at it at this point. Rapid fire stuff from the Twitch pitch. How close do you think we are to having a women's CONCACAF Champions League and potentially a women's Club World Cup? That's from Turner. Decade away in total. I think you've got the UEFA Women's Champions League. You've got a Copa Libertadores Femenina. You need to have a CONCACAF one. I don't know the status in Asia and Africa of Champions League competitions. You need to get the CONCACAF one going first, give it time to take root. Maybe a decade.
Yeah.
And that's fine. You need to get in the U.S., you need to get a Women's Open Cup back up and running, too. That needs to be a priority. Maybe when this USL Pro-Am starts in 22, maybe 23, you can start a Women's Open Cup involving those teams and the WPSL, and there's a few other regional amateur leagues along with NWSL. Let's get the Women's Open Cup going. That I would focus on that first. Get CONCACAF in 5 years, get the Women's Open Cup in 2 years, and get a Club World Cup for the women in 10 years. But create the pathway to get there. Mizano says ESPN's reporting Newcastle is interested in Chris Gloucester. Have we discussed? We have not. Gloucester is an interesting one in that it's been a little quiet lately. He's in the U23 training camp. ESPN had a source tell them that Gloucester has drawn interest from Newcastle. He has not made his PSV first-team debut yet. Newcastle has DeAndre Yedlin there, and they don't seem to want to tell him what his future is going to be. So why would you bring Gloucester in on loan if you're already weird with Yedlin, unless you're going to move Yedlin and he comes into that role? Maybe. I don't know. He needs to get first-team minutes somewhere. That part's a definite. I don't know if Newcastle's the spot to do it, but he needs to play first-team minutes somewhere. He's at that point where, second-team minutes at PSV are not good enough anymore. He needs first-team minutes somewhere. I don't know if I want to send him to Steve Bruce, to be perfectly honest.
No. Where careers go to die, it's a career black hole.
Yeah, nobody wants that for your development for young players. It's not good at all. Let's see. Last things from the Twitch pitch. Jason Nick says, we can't have any teams playing in a baseball stadium, full stop. We can if it is built to do it and you can have a wide enough field. That's all I care about. If it's because the alignment's a little weird or whatever, I can deal. You got to be 70. Okay, you got to be a real 70 yards wide. Preferably, you got to be 72 yards wide at a minimum. New York City and Yankee Stadium, I know. It really sounds like the progress has been made. The pandemic, of course, would have slowed it down. But it sounds like they're in the right direction on a stadium. I'll give them Yankee Stadium until they get into that one almost next door. Fine. If that falls apart, they got to make some tough decisions because they can't stay at Yankee Stadium forever. That can't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Modiflow USL is definitely going to happen this year. That is a good thing. And they are very close to getting their first CBA done. Some great reporting from Jeff Reuter at The Athletic on that. He's great on the lower divisions with The Athletic. They're really close to their first CBA. A lot of different things into it that, I mean, you've got to be pretty deep in the weeds on it. We know how these CBAs go. One key element that Reuter pointed out is term length. It's supposed to be 5 years. They want to get it done before the season starts. And the CBA would run from the 21 season through the end of 25. It would be the first such CBA in the history of lower division soccer in the United States. Now, this would be for the championship. There would then be the process for one for League One. It'd probably be roughly the same framework, probably some changes to the economic levels and such. But yeah, that's the plan. That's huge. That's a really good thing because we've seen it in the championship. We've seen it in League One. As these teams have started to become more sustainable, they've got to hit certain standards to be truly professional and treat their players the right way. Look, I have been part of teams at this level. I've watched it, and there were teams that I have been part of that I had checks bounce a lot with the Atlanta Ruckus, 1998. I think at least 6 of them bounced. I think. It might have been more. That was a situation where the owner ended up pulling out of it. This was 98. I mean, it's kind of long ago, but it's not that long ago. That was the reality. Did they pay as much to players as you would like them to pay as a fully professional? No, these guys were not fully professional. They were semi-pro. I mean, you had guys who, before the owner pulled out and you were running off the letter of credit, you had guys who worked other jobs. Yeah, absolutely. And not just soccer coaches who are running camps and clinics. Like, these were guys who worked other jobs because they had to. That was just where the reality of the business was. There wasn't enough money. I mean, that's the reality here. Is there wasn't enough money to pay the players more. Now there is. Now you've set different standards. Now there's an expectation. Yeah, the majority of these players in the lower divisions should be able to focus on being professional players full time. That needs to be the case. They need to be paid properly. They need to be paid on time. They need to have certain levels of benefits. Yeah, all these things need to be there. That's what a CBA will do. You're at a point now where it's a must. And it's a necessity, and you're at a point now where you can actually do it. I mean, you weren't even a few years ago. The Atlanta Silverbacks, every offseason when they were in the North American Soccer League, is it coming back? We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know. At the end of 2014, I was playing the in-stadium music at games in 2014. At the end of 2014, nobody thought there was going to be a 2015 season that was working for the team. Nobody. Playing the post-game music after the last home game, it was the goodbye music. It was the goodbye playlist. Nobody thought there was going to be a 2015 season. And then magically there was, because the league needed a team. They didn't want to have a team fold. At the end of 2015, nobody thought it was coming back. But nobody knew, because we just went through that in 2014. And then it didn't come back. In January of 2016, it was announced they're not coming back. That's only a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the USL Championship is at a level now where you shouldn't have those issues anymore. And now a CBA will help protect the players, so it's good. Let's see what else we got.
In the inbox, Austin FC is going to announce a naming rights partnership with an Austin-based company on Monday.
Very nice.
So they're
naming rights for what, stadium?
Yeah, that's the indication that McCalla Place might have a name on Monday.
Very nice.
With a sponsor attached.
Well, the stadium, not the training facility, right?
Yes,
okay,
yes, stadium.
Got it. Okay. All right, we're going to go stupid rapid fire because we're 21 minutes over. We're not going 3 hours. R2 says, what's your thoughts on Detroit City? Will they get the chance to somehow compete in a higher level? They got to continue to grow. I mean, they were a brilliant amateur club that outgrew the NPSL, like Chattanooga. Now they've got more resources to work with. I want to see NISA solidify itself and become a true professional third division. There's a need for it. You can have multiple third division leagues. I have no problem. Yeah, I think you can have multiple second division leagues in this country. It's so big. That's why I don't look at the American soccer pyramid like it has to model England or Germany or whoever else. It's a giant country. It can look different. You can have multiple second division, multiple third division leagues. Germany has multiple third division leagues. Have multiple ones. And have them in kind of different levels. I think NISA wants to be more of a developmental league for clubs as well. So Detroit City's in the right spot. If they continue to grow, yeah, promotion here is done financially at the moment because of what we talked about before with being sustainable. Detroit City's got all the pieces in place to continue to grow. They have to make the right decisions and continue to do it in the right way that is sustainable. Don't pump a bunch of money into it and expect a massive return in revenues the next year. It's just not how it's going to work at that level. Keep growing. Keep growing and keep making it a product that should grow up the ladder, and it will. It's what we've seen already with them. And Chattanooga, both of them have done everything you want these teams to do at that level. They've proven they're sustainable when a lot of teams around them proved that they weren't. So now they're up a level. Let's see how they handle that level, and you continue to grow that way. It's what you do in leagues that have promotion and relegation where they win their way up. But this right now, the way the U.S. is set up, you're guaranteeing that they can survive moving up because it's all about the finances at this point. And that's kind of what it needs to be for now. I hope we can get away from that where everybody's at a comfortable level where teams don't fold. It's going to take a little bit longer. They're still growing to do it the lower divisions. And that's okay. That's not a bad thing.
Andres Guardado, according to AS, is joining Charlotte FC. Jonathan Tannenwald says no mention of where he'll spend 2021, but certainly a splash for Charlotte to kick off with.
Man, he was supposed to join Atlanta in 2016, according to John Sutcliffe of ESPN.
Yeah.
Guaranteed it, pretty much. Then he was supposed to join somebody else in, 2018, and he was supposed to join. So, cool. It's good, but, man, that's 5 years down the road. That's a long time after he was supposed to come to MLS.
Yeah.
We'll see how that one goes. We'll see if that
5 years later.
Out. I'm intrigued. Wood to RSL. We didn't talk about that DK. It's not done yet, I don't think. They need a number 9. They've needed a number 9 for a couple of years now. Can he be that guy? Man, he's got all the raw materials. Just have to see how he fits into that team. Now is the time for him. If he's going to be the player that I think a lot of people thought he would turn into, it's now. He's got to show it. He'll have the opportunity to at RSL because he would be the guy. He would be the number 9. And they've thrown Krylock up there. He's got good players around him. It's kind of young, but you've got Rusnak and Krylock who are really good. I like the move. I do. I like the move. Modiflow wonders where DeAndre Yedlin would fit into MLS. We went through this a few weeks ago. I think Seattle was one spot that we looked at that would actually make a lot of sense, and it'd be going home for him. So they seem to make the most sense if he comes back in. Ricky says the Brian Reynolds saga continues. Yeah, that thing's crazy, and it sounds like you've got some issues with the finances and who would be able to pay what now and who would need to pay it later. And it sounds like Dallas has not gotten all of their money they were supposed to get on Reggie Cannon as well from Boa Vista. That was from Taylor Twellman on Twitter. Maybe that's playing into it. They want to make sure he's going to go somewhere where the check is cut now and not, yeah, well, here's some, and we'll pay the rest in a few weeks, and here's the rest in a few months. Yeah. So now Roma seems like they could be jumping back in because of that situation with Juve, because Juve needed a partner because they don't have a spot for a non-EU player right now. He was going to have to go to Benevento, but it seems like Benevento doesn't have the money to make it happen right now, so Roma might jump in and get it done instead. Reynolds has left the national team camp. There was reports also that he tested positive for COVID when he arrived, but he has left camp probably because of both, to deal with both situations. But his professional future, don't know where it's going just yet. A lot of praise on USL. Modiflow is going to make sure No, we don't want that discussion, Modiflow. You can keep it. We don't want the discussion that you led when you fell, John, for Modiflow's dirty tricks on Twitter.
I thought he might be like a right back in the academy or something.
No.
Instead of something about agriculture.
Yes. Modiflow, you can save that one and put it on the wall in the museum. Let's see. we're not going much longer for card. We're leaving. Yes, Tesco, fntz.co/soccer down here is our partner affiliate deal with Fanatis. You want to watch Copa Sudamericana final tomorrow at 3 o'clock on BN? That's your spot to do it. It's going to be a good game, too. Defensa y Justicia and Lanús, two attacking teams. Two teams have scored a bunch of goals in the Sudamericana tournament this year. I'm excited about it because Defensa is in it. I'm excited to see if Brian Romero can score his 10th or 11th or 12th goals in the Sudamericana. He scored 9 and 8. Excited to see Jose Pepe Sand, 40 years old for Lanús. He's still the guy up top. Got 4 goals, a couple of big ones in the quarters and the semis. We'll preview that game in more detail tomorrow morning on the Power Hour. But if you want to watch Copa Sudamericana final and anything else Fanatis has, Brasileiro, you have to sign up an additional package for that one, for the Brasileiro pack. But you've also got all the BN stuff, all the Goal TV stuff, Real Madrid TV, Sevilla TV. You can add the Italian language pack as well if you want to watch Rai Italia and Serie A games in Italian. fntz.co/soccer down here. Lots of guesses on the title sponsor for the stadium for Austin. We're going to let you guys figure that out. You can continue that discussion on the Discord. That's going to do it. We're out. We're leaving.
Okay.
Four-card says, when is Gabby coming? Training camp on Monday. We don't know. I think he's still trying to get everything finalized for him to come into the country, but it's very, very soon is my understanding. So, Alex Basine, no, that's all hypothetical. We're leaving. Y'all have a good rest of the day. We'll be back for the Power Hour in the morning. The discussions will continue on our Discord. If you are a subscriber on Twitch, if you're a subscriber on Patreon, and you're not in the Discord, please let me know. Send me a message on Twitter at Longshoe. We get you taken care of there, but all the discussions can continue there. Y'all have a good rest of the day. Mucha plata, y'all.
Much plot, y'all.